The most important time in the Bible is literally the center of time, and it's described in the Bible as the fullness of time or the climax of the ages, when God himself manifested on the earth. You know, Abraham, while he was on his way to offer, his son asked, Dad, here's the fire, here's the wood, but where's the sacrifice? And he said, God himself will provide himself a sacrifice. Now, I read the story as a child, and I heard it many times, and it's like, God will provide the lamb. No, it's God himself. He himself became the lamb. You need to understand that from the beginning, the Spirit Word came out the Father, and God was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So it is God himself manifesting in different forms. The Spirit Word came from the Father, and it was God with God. You cannot separate God. God is always in harmony and is always in unity, but he manifests in different ways. I've always thought about the glorified body and the resurrected body, and I'm like, oh my word, we have an example on the earth. That is when Jesus was resurrected. I mean, he walked through walls, and the amazing thing is he ate. We're going to eat and we're going to work, but it's going to be in a different way. And Adam fell, so it's a shifting of realms. He didn't stop living. The living was different. So we're going to be raised up again, so the living going to be perfect again. We're in a fallen state, so our bodies and everything will be back into perfection. But the greatest time ever in time, in the day of death, is when this life-giving God, in him was life, and the life was the light. When he came right down center to this earth, and the Word became flesh and dwelled amongst us. How can you ever explain that to anybody? Now, the minute Jesus Christ came to the earth, the mysteries was revealed. When something is sealed, it belongs to God, but when it's open, it belongs to us. Deuteronomy 29:29. They carried the testimony of God in an ark called the Testament, in the time of preparation for the body, from Moses unto Christ, because from Adam to Moses, death reigned. From Moses to Christ, the law reigned. The law was a system of worship that carried the mysteries. He says God spoke to the fathers in separate revelations. Now, who's the fathers? Abraham became the father of faith because he was the first guy that actually believed. Now, if we go back, Adam failed, his son failed, his generation failed, and then Noah failed. But then God called out of the kingdoms of the world in the Ur of the Chaldees. God said to Abraham, come out of your city, come out of your family, and you will sojourn. Abraham just believed. This is a spiritual concept that was literally played out in an earthly environment, because you can go back to the countries and find, oh, here he was. I remember when I got to Israel, the first thing that I noticed is the signboards on the roads are the names in my Bible. I realized it's like God picked a place where everything was manifested so that we can know the Word is infallible. But Abraham sojourned and he believed God. But now Adam lost his kingship. And the problem is God do not want us to be kings in this fallen creation. So Cain's generation, all they did is build cities and they all wanted kings. They messed up the earth to a point where God had to flood the earth. But then after the flood came the Tower of Babel. God said, no, stop. I don't want you to build a city. So it's not about the city. It's the spirit behind the city. Because when Jesus came, he said, you're a city set on a hill. Abraham went looking for a city whose builder and maker is God. It was the time where every king was trying to make his own city, and God called Abraham out of that. And Abraham believed and he moved. But then Abraham came to the biggest test, because he went into the world, lied about his wife. That's typical of the world. But God said he's going to bring his sons out of Egypt. And Abraham departed from Lot. The mountain road is a lonely road, but it's a glorious road. And when the kings of the world made trouble and conquered Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham went after his family. Wow. And Abraham killed all the kings and he conquered them. And at that point, Melchizedek appeared to him. What on earth? This is so important that it's repeated in Hebrews 7. At the slaughter of the kings, Melchizedek appeared. Kingship and being great and being lifted, that is the spirit that ruled the darkness. And Abraham got rid of the kings. Now, if we read in Matthew 1, it's Jesus, son of David, son of Abraham. David got rid of the giants, which Israel didn't want to do. They didn't want to take their promised land because of giants. David slaughtered them. So there is a seed line within the seed line here that is very important. Now, when Melchizedek appeared to Abraham, God made a covenant with a man and he said, you will be blessed. And he divides the seed line into two lines and he said, in your seed after you and in your seed in their generations. Now the generational seed line, he said, they will be a kingdom of priests. He never told them that they will be kings, but they were amongst the worldly kings. But God was preparing a seedly king line because David was the king. And the spiritual seed line is developed within the natural seed line. But they became the dove that missed it. Noah was the raven, and Abraham was the foundation of the world that was going to bring forth the body that's going to host the Spirit of God. God himself is going to live on the earth. God is going to dwell amongst us, Emmanuel. But these people said, no, we want a king. We want to be. He said, well, they've not rejected you, Samuel. They have rejected me. And they usurped kingship. But in that, God placed his son there, David. And David said, I'm a tree planted by the rivers. So God was literally preparing the earth now. And on the earth, there was a spiritual seed line. So the natural seed line was to bring forth the body, but it has a spiritual seed line that God could trust, because the natural is lies and deception, and you cannot trust it. But while the earth was being in preparation, the people didn't understand it, and it was like mysteries. Like they carried the ark and they had all these rituals. But I don't